Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Nancy Wodrago, State Specialist in Community and Economic Development with Illinois Extension, and we're happy to have Devin Bronstein on as our Assistant Director with the Illinois Office of Broadband and trainer today for this Train the Trainer with the Illinois BEAD Challenge map. Want to just let everybody know that Devin is leading today. She'll be giving you some instruction in the beginning, the training, as well as handling questions at the end. Thank you for attending. Also, giving you some additional instructions about interpretation today. And Devin, I will just pass it on to you. We are so happy to have you on doing this training today. We appreciate all you do, and thanks for being here. Devin?
Thanks, Nancy, and right back at you. Thank you so much for helping us to facilitate all of these great webinars and trainings. Truly a huge help. So I'm Devin Bronstein. I work for the Illinois Office of Broadband as the Assistant Director. So excited to lead you through this training today. It'll be some sort of content that I'm sharing, but then a couple of opportunities for interaction and for you to share out. Before we get started, would like to share this slide here. So we are offering today's meeting in both English and Spanish. Please navigate to the bottom of your screen and click on the globe icon that says interpretation, and then click on your preferred language. So even if you are listening today in English, please click on English. And if you are listening in Spanish, please click on Spanish. Closed captions are also available, and you can click that at the bottom of your screen. And then if you're able to change your name on Zoom to your name and then your organization or name and community member, just so we can see who's here with us today. And with that, I'll get started. Please let us know if you're having any challenges logging onto the correct language, and we'll be sure to troubleshoot. All right, so welcome to Train the Trainer, how you can help your community improve the broadband map. As a reminder, this is the second of 2 identical trainings. So we had one yesterday, really great engagement, good questions. And so if you are here today again, just know that the content will be the same, but you are of course welcome to participate and ask any questions that you have. All right, objectives. So after this webinar, participants will understand how individuals can help improve the Illinois broadband map, know how to use the speed test tool, feel ready and prepared to support members of their communities in taking speed tests, and have the materials that they need to spread the word. Today's agenda, we'll start off with a quick icebreaker community building activity to see who is here with us today. I'll go through some background on what is the challenge process. Then we'll do an overview of a couple of key points here. First, how individuals can participate, how the challenge process is important for multi-dwelling units, which are apartment buildings. I'll walk through a very sort of straightforward step-by-step speed test tool how-to, then share some outreach materials. And then we'll go into an interactive activity to hear from you on kind of what are your ideas and next steps from here. We'll do a Q&A and then talk about next steps. So would love to see who's here today. We really tried to advertise this meeting to folks who have trusted close relationships with members of the community because they are going to be the hardest to reach in this challenge process. If you're not in the weeds on all of this, like I am every day, you know, this whole process can be kind of daunting and a little bit confusing. So really today, we're trying to work with those organizations who can sort of gain that baseline understanding and then disseminate the message in your communities to make sure that this is as inclusive of a process as it can be. So I'm gonna take down the slides for a second and then ask a couple of questions. And then if you can raise your hand, you can, physically raise it. If you're on video, raise your Zoom hand or put something in the chat, just so we can get a sense for who's in the room. So can you raise your hand if you are here from a nonprofit organization? Great. Awesome. And then raise your hand or keep your hand raised if you're here from a community-based organization. So you could be both. All right, got some continued hands raised. Raise your hand if you're here from a local government department. Great. And raise your hand if you are just a member of the community wanting to get involved. I guess technically everyone's also a member of the community. All right, raise your hand if you're part of a housing authority or some sort of housing organization. Great. And then did we miss anyone? Feel free to unmute or throw in the chat who you are and if we missed you. I think we had at least one hand raised for each category, so that's awesome. All right, well, welcome everyone. And given everyone who raised their hands, I think that we have the right folks in the room, which is really awesome to confirm. So hopefully my slides are sharing again. Great. And then also feel free to put in the chat your name, organization, and why you're here today. All right. So not to give everyone a pop quiz, but this is kind of a sort of low stakes pop quiz. If you have attended any state webinars or webinars, maybe in your local community, I know I've done a couple in Chicago before. Hopefully some of the terms on the screen are starting to sound familiar to you. So I'm going to read them off and actually ask you if anyone wants to volunteer and share your understanding of the definition of that term. That's how I kind of learn best. So I thought I would try it here, and then I'll share the more formal definitions. So there are these three terms that describe how a household is served or not served with broadband. And these terms are unserved, underserved, and served. Can anyone tell me what these terms mean? You can share the definition for one, kind of broadly speaking what these mean, and feel free to put it in the chat or just unmute yourself and share. I know at least one person has an idea on this call. Thank you, Troy. All right, so Troy said unserved is less than 20 megabits down and 3 up, so close. So unserved means that you don't have broadband at home or you don't have broadband available to your home. And technically the way that the Federal Communications Commission or FCC defines broadband is 25 megabits per second download speeds and 3 megabits per second upload speeds. So you are unserved if your household cannot enroll in that 25/3 Mbps speed. Underserved is kind of that next level up. So you might have access to 25/3 speeds, but what you don't have access to is a higher tier that it seems like a lot of regulators are starting to recognize as, perhaps a better standard for broadband, which is 100/20 speeds. So that's 100 download speed, 20 upload speed. And then served means that your household does have access to 100/20 speeds or higher. And again, these are definitions that come from the federal government and are sort of governing how funding is doled out to states and around states for broadband infrastructure. And I will acknowledge there's kind of a whole other side of the coin here around affordability. So you might have 100/20 speeds available to your home, but if you can't afford it, or if there's not an option that works for you, you're still facing challenges. So I just want to acknowledge that this is definitely a nuanced issue, but these definitions are an important part of this specific federal program. Does anyone know what latency means? And you can use your own kind of creative definition, that's fine too. All right, I'll share the definition here because I don't have it memorized. So, okay, lag in delivery. That's great. I think that's exactly right. So the time it takes, yeah, okay, perfect. Folks have this down. The time it takes between uploading something and it actually being uploaded. The formal definition I have is the time it takes data to go to a server and back to your connection, and you want to have lower latency. So if latency is above 100 milliseconds or 100 ms, it's possible that your like video connection might be choppy or freeze. Um, yeah, some great examples in the chat. All right, a community anchor institution or a multi-dwelling unit. Does anyone know what either of these mean or how you would define them? Okay. Um, oh, okay, good, good. So let's see. Kat said MDU, apartments, duplexes, triplexes. Exactly. An MDU is a residential building that has two or more units. So essentially an apartment building is an MDU. We just use this fancy term because that's what government does sometimes, but multi-dwelling unit, MDU, just think of apartment building. And a community anchor institution, yeah, all of these examples in the chat are great. School, library, city government, park, field house, post office. Right. So a community anchor institution is some sort of local institution that serves vulnerable populations and helps to connect folks to broadband internet. So the state is actually in the process of finalizing its definition of community anchor institution, thanks to a lot of public feedback this past fall. But this could include perhaps like a park field house where you're doing a lesson or a summer camp that involves using digital tools. A library, we know libraries have computer labs. There are certain community-based organizations who might do digital trainings. So lots of things on this list. Great. So here are the formal definitions, and you'll get these slides. So you can, next time, everyone will get A pluses on the quiz. Oh, okay. Next section is background. What is the challenge process? So the challenge process is all tied towards this program called BEAD. BEAD stands for Broadband Equity Action and Deployment Program. BEAD is just, a catchy way to say a long term. So the BEAD program is a federal program with the NTIA, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. They awarded Illinois $1.04 billion to connect all unserved and underserved locations to broadband, so high-speed internet, over the next 5 years. So now when we say unserved and underserved, you know exactly what we're talking about. The goal is to end the BEAD program in 5 years with universal coverage around the state using fiber wherever possible. Fiber is a sort of, they call it future-proof. It provides very high-speed connection and probably like some of the most advanced broadband technology. The goal is to prioritize those unserved and underserved households, but also community anchor institutions, making sure that they have the right broadband speeds to connect lots of folks, as well as looking at MDUs, so multi-dwelling units, and making sure that not just one unit in the MDU has a broadband connection, but every unit in that building. The program requires a low-cost plan, as well as a middle-class affordability plan. And then the timing of this is, so what we're talking about today is the broadband map. There will be some sort of various things that happen to get to a map that is as accurate as we can get it. That will kick off the process to select broadband providers to actually connect these locations. And then the goal is to implement that, or the requirement is to implement that over the next 5 years. So I've mentioned this challenge process a few times, so let me share a little bit more. The challenge process is basically, the goal is to ensure that the state's broadband map accurately reflects your home or organization's access to broadband. And this is important because it informs which locations are eligible for this broadband infrastructure funding. And we will dive deeper into this today. Who can submit challenges? So this is the tricky part. While the entities who are allowed to submit challenges directly must be units of local government, nonprofit organizations, and internet service providers, what Illinois has adopted is a way that individuals can participate through local governments or nonprofits. So today we're going to do kind of like a deep dive on this tool that we are encouraging any individuals who want to participate to sort of use. And so that's where you all come in. You're going to get trained and then share this information out with residents who you might interact with. So what can actually be challenged? Over the next 2 weeks, we will be publishing a BEAD challenge map. And on this map, it'll be online and interactive. You'll be able to zoom in to a certain area, and then there will be locations on the map. So households and businesses are going to be called broadband serviceable locations, or BSLs. And then there will also be those community anchor institutions on the map. Anything that you see on the map can be challenged if it is not correctly listed based on your experience and evidence that you have to demonstrate as such. So this could be availability, speed, or latency. When will the challenge process be held? We're kind of at the will of NTIA to give us final approval to start. We're finalizing our maps. And once all of that is done, hopefully before the end of this month, the challenge process will open and run for between 2 and 4 weeks. And I see a couple of questions coming through the chat, so just know that we'll get to those at the end. All right, so next, how can individuals participate? Like I mentioned, there are 3 eligible entities who can formally participate in the challenge process, and that is nonprofits, local governments, and internet service providers. But the exciting thing is that these entities can take challenges from individuals and submit them themselves. So we're super grateful for a local nonprofit called the Internet Equity Initiative, based out of the University of Chicago, who's developed this pretty user-friendly tool that can be used by individuals to test their speed and latency and then submit their information for this to be included as a challenge in the challenge process. How does this work? First, the individual will take 3 speed tests over 3 separate calendar days. Then, if they would like to submit this as a challenge, someone will include their information. So there's fields I'll show you in a minute, such as name, address, and current internet subscription. Then the nonprofit receives the data and will submit it to the Office of Broadband as a challenge. And I want to really emphasize what's in this bottom rectangle here. Only you know what internet quality you get in your home. And so this is why it is crucial to make sure that all of you are involved and that you are bringing community members along for the ride, because as government, whatever level of government, it's challenging to know exactly what's happening on the ground. And so the more community members who participate, the more accurate information we will get, and the more we'll understand broadband need, and thus can make sure that funding goes where it is needed most. So truly, this is information that governments don't have. We truly need individuals to participate, to lift up their experiences, and get that map to be as accurate as it can be. So what is your role as an organization who interacts with community members? Why you are here today? So hopefully all of you are trusted local organizations. And after today's training, we hope that you feel equipped to bring this information to members of your community, to educate them on why the broadband map is important and support them through the speed test process. So I like to say, get trained today so you can train others tomorrow. You can share the opportunity through social media, print and distribute one-pagers at events, meetings, post these to local bulletin boards, grocery stores, laundromats, community spaces. Walk people through the process and train them on how to submit a speed test, and just support residents if they want to participate. You can show people how to check their current subscriptions, and much more. So last section before we kind of dig into this whole speed test tool, multi-dwelling units. Like I mentioned, multi-dwelling units are buildings with at least 2 residential units in them, like apartment buildings. So why are these important? In some instances, apartment buildings may be marked as connected to high-speed internet on the map, when residents' experience is that not all units are actually connected. That could mean that perhaps wiring goes just to the lobby, wiring only goes to the hallways or only certain units. And what that leads to is the building being considered connected on the map, but in reality, there are certain units who are not getting those speeds. So how can you correct the map? There's a really big opportunity to have an impact here. Residents can take 3 speed tests over 3 days to document their reality and then potentially alter whether their building is eligible for funding to update broadband infrastructure. So there's a couple of thresholds here. In a 2 to 15 unit building, you just need 1 unit to participate. In a 16 to 24 unit building, at least 2 units must participate. And in a building with 25 or more units, at least 3 units must participate. So the more the merrier, but in a lot of cases, you're really just making an ask of 1 or 2 residences. So will my participation have an impact on the map? The entire building may be considered eligible for funding, meaning it could get switched from served to underserved or underserved to unserved if a couple of things are true. So the median of 3 speed tests taken on 3 separate days, if it delivers a result slower than 100 over 20 megabits per second or latency above 100 milliseconds, and the unit subscribes to a plan of 100 over 20 megabits per higher, essentially you're not getting what your subscription says you're getting, then, you know, and the evidence that you provide is valid, then your building could potentially be changed in terms of its categorization. And we're going to walk through like what that all looks like. So speed test tool how-to. The very first step is something before you even log on to the speed test. And this is find the internet speed your household currently subscribes to. So you can do this in a couple of ways. Many internet service providers have apps. So you can log on to the app and find it under your account information. You can also log on to your account online or call up your internet service provider to ask what speeds you subscribe to. Make sure that you are getting your download speed as well as your upload speed. So 100, in this case, 100 is the download speed, 20 is the upload speed, and it'll be megabits per second. So again, just make sure that you're getting those 2 numbers. And then write this down. Next, the speed test tool is at beadchallenge.org. As an FYI, if you are a Spanish speaker, you can hover over the text and view each piece in Spanish. So beadchallenge.org, pretty easy. This is what you'll see. Then you'll click on start, and this will initiate the speed test. So what it's doing is checking your speed. This may take 30 seconds, maybe a minute. So just kind of hold tight and wait for it to finish doing its thing. A couple of best practices to get an accurate read on your speed is to get really close to your router, whether that's with your laptop or a computer, and then plug into your router if you can. So if you have like an Ethernet cord, that's something that you can plug in. We got a question yesterday about what time of day should I do this? And if you know that there is a time of day where your speeds feel like slower, there may be more people using the internet, I think feel free to take the speed test then, because the reality is that everyone should have the quality connection at all times of the day, particularly when you're teleworking or you know, doing a telehealth care appointment. Maybe the kids are online too. So all of those things should be true. After your speed test finishes, you will see your speed test results. So this is an example of what you might see. So important slide here. What are we actually looking for when we're looking at our speed test results? A couple of things. And again, this is specific to how individuals might be able to participate through a speed test. There's lots of other ways to challenge, but we want to get really targeted for today because I think this is like the most straightforward way to participate. So look at your download speed. Is this speed less than 100? Look at your upload speed. Is this speed less than 20? And then look at your latency. Is your latency greater than 100? So quick knowledge check. Asking yourselves those questions. Is there any result of the speed test that you see on the screen that might prompt someone to submit the speed test as part of a challenge? And I'm going to pause here and perhaps folks could either shout out or put in the chat if you see anything that where the answer to one of these questions is no. Great. Roberto says upload speed. So that is correct. Upload speed is less than 20 because it's 15.5. So if you get a upload speed of less than 20, a download speed of of less than 100, or a latency that is more than 100, you'll get this notification. Poor internet performance has been detected in your last speed test measurement. To make sure that this measurement informs your community's eligibility for funding and is reflected on the Illinois broadband map, fill in your address, zip code, and email below, and submit the results for analysis. So again, these three bullets right here are what will generate this notice and, let you know that your speed test results may actually have a real impact on this map. So if you finish your speed test and you want to submit, click the down arrow, and then you'll be prompted to fill in some of these fields. It's really important that you fill in your address accurately and correctly. Make sure you include your unit if you do live in an apartment building. And then remember earlier when I shared that you should write down what you currently subscribe for. This is where you put that in. So if you subscribe to 100 download, 20 upload, you put 100 under download and 20 under upload. And now repeat. So in order for this to be a valid challenge, you need to repeat over 3 calendar days, 3 speed tests. A challenge won't count unless you do it 3 times over 3 separate days and submit your information each time. It does not need to be 3 days in a row, just 3 separate calendar days. So we had a question yesterday, is it every 24 hours or is it calendar days? It's calendar days. So you could submit it on, 11:52 on January 5th and 12:10 a.m. on January 6th. That's totally fine. You'll also get email reminders once you submit one, and those emails will stop after 3 days. But if you want to share more data, there's no harm in that, and you can share more than 3 days worth of speed tests. And I guess one more thing to note here is, so if your speed test meets any of those criteria that we just walked through here, latency over 100, download less than 100, upload less than 100, less than 20, that's great. Not great, but that means that your challenge will probably have some sort of impact on the map or may have an impact. Even if you don't meet these criteria, there's no harm in submitting your speed test because it helps us just get a better picture of the map and data to understand where certain broadband speeds are and are not available. Okay, so we developed some outreach materials which are available in English and Spanish. So you can share this out to members of your community and your network. These are graphics formatted for social media platforms that, try and just share the message in simple terms, calling all Illinois residents. So you need to live in Illinois to participate. Let's get the broadband map right. How you can help: take 3 speed tests over 3 days. 3 steps. 1, confirm your current subscription. 2, test your speed. 3, submit and repeat. And then we have 2 one-pagers that have a bit more details. So if you want to kind of print something out to have it handy, leave it, flyers, give it to a resident as you're walking them through the process. They have some more detailed frequently asked questions and just could be a good resource. Yes, these are in Spanish as well, and I'll share the link, I think, on the next slide. Yeah, so materials are now posted, and we'll share over email to everyone who registered for these sessions. So dceo.illinois.gov/BEAD challenge has all information related to the challenge process. And so just scroll down and you'll see information about Train the Trainer, and you can click and download each of the images. Okay, so before we get into questions, would love to go through this interactive activity. So how will you empower and support members of your community to participate? What spaces or interactions will you tap to engage residents? So kind of taking all of what you've learned, knowing that we have these one-pagers, social media graphics, you know, I saw a lot of community organizations here today, local government. How, what's next? How are you gonna get the word out? How are you gonna support residents? And would love if anyone could unmute and share, or put their response in the chat. Any volunteers? I can share some of what we heard yesterday, but would love to hear what folks have to say today. All right, Terrence in the chat said include it in newsletters and target schools to use students to get the information to parents. That's perfect. Perhaps a community event at a library or something similar. That sounds great. Share with coalitions and member organizations. I'll share one from yesterday too. I think it was a housing authority. They do some like one-on-one resident visits. So someone had the idea to bring these materials to share with residents one-on-one and help them take speed tests should they be interested. Have contacts with local media, so a press release coming locally. Nice, Terrence. Let us know if you want any like formal information to include in that. Kimberly says reaching out in public spaces like laundromats, coffee shops, etc., who know the communities they're serving. Alvaro says AARP Illinois will send an email to our membership and reach out to community partners. Cheryl will share with churches to have teach-ins. That's great. One note on timeline. So like I mentioned, the actual challenge process will open sometime later in January. But the good news is that speed tests taken within 60 days of the challenge process opening are going to be valid. So you can start this process as early as now, as early as yesterday, and really consider, all of January as a time to encourage folks to take speed tests. I'm seeing some interest in kind of like media information. So let me jot that down to maybe create like a media toolkit, or, sort of, I would say feel free to take information from the one pagers. But I'll jot that down too to see what else we can provide. All right. And then hearing from parks, make it a part of our registration promotion, encourage people to take tests before they register for programming online. That's awesome. Okay, well, I see we have a lot of questions, so let's keep moving. A couple of next steps. So, great. I'm so excited to answer all these questions, but a couple more slides. So pre-registration. If you are a nonprofit or local government or internet service provider who's on this call and you want to participate directly, so beyond what we talked about, there's kind of a whole other webinar series happening on if you want to participate directly. So let's say that you work at a community anchor institution and you are not getting the gigabit service, so 1,000 over 1,000 megabits per second. There's going to be an opportunity for you to submit evidence of that. That could be communication with an internet service provider saying that you can't get those speeds. It could be a screenshot of a website of a provider saying that your address, they can't support your address. So there's a lot of other ways to participate as an organization, kind of putting the individual opportunity aside. In order to participate, you need to pre-register. This is required. And the deadline is January 12th. It's a simple form. You say who you are, the type of organization you are. And this just helps us know, let's make sure that you're a verified eligible entity. And then you'll also receive communication about the challenge process start date, important dates, resources, updates. So it doesn't hurt to pre-register, and we'll throw the link in the chat so you have that handy. All right, outreach next steps. Share, share, share. We'll share with you again the link to download all of the graphics and one-pagers. I recommend strategizing on who were community members or apartment buildings who you've heard may have had challenges with their internet. Set up time, do a training with them, walk them through a speed test. Doesn't hurt to submit that information, print out one-pagers, post them in comment spaces, etc. And again, you can start taking speed tests now. Next week or within the next 2 weeks, we'll be publishing that updated map. So if you're interested, you can go in and peruse, check out the map, see how your location might be categorized now. Okay, so gonna move on to Q&A now. And I'll stop sharing for a moment. I'm gonna scroll back up because I think we had some questions from earlier on. So Emily asked, can a speed test be done from a phone? Is there a requirement of what your cellular settings are to test this properly? I would say definitely a laptop. And I believe that it is, if you're on the Wi-Fi, you can do it from a phone. You shouldn't be on cellular data. That's kind of coming from a different source. But if you are on the Wi-Fi, that should work. And I know I have some of my colleagues on the phone with me, so if anyone wants to refine that answer, please feel free to jump in. Bill asked, what if a location has no service, can't do a speed test, but it is not correctly identified on the map? What information must be collected for a challenge and how should it be submitted? So Bill, this is an example of a challenge type called an availability challenge. And while an individual can't submit that directly, they can work with yourself to get you that information. And then you as a nonprofit can participate in the challenge process and submit that information. So an availability challenge basically says the broadband speeds, adequate broadband speeds, meaning 25 over 3 or 100 over 20 are just not available in my house. So in this case, taking a speed test doesn't make sense if you're not subscribed to anything. So the evidence that would be needed is something like a screenshot of communication with a provider saying that they cannot provide those speeds to your residency, to your household, or searching on their website. And if it says, we cannot serve your households, try that with providers who might be in the area. And that's going to create a sort of complete evidence package to show, my residence looks one way on the map, but here's the reality. And I would encourage you, and I think, Bill, you have already come to the broader webinars about the challenge process, but more in those webinars. Roberto asked, are experts from the IL Office of Broadband available to provide presentations? I would say yes. So if you want to do this training for a smaller group, bring other folks together, I can definitely make myself available, and I have lots of colleagues who can also step in there. And then if you're interested in like a larger presentation on the latest, can definitely, make those as time allows. Or we have other weekly webinars about the challenge process that I'll make sure everyone gets the link. Alvaro says, is encouraging reaching out to Spanish language media, Univision and Telemundo. Yes, great idea. Local media is great, so feel free to share the word to get this out as wide as we can. Recording will be available in English and Spanish, and we'll send out an email with the slides and with the recording links, all the resources and everything, and then probably some Q&A responses as well. Great. And I just got additional clarification on the cell phone question. So as long as your cellular data is turned off and you're connected to a Wi-Fi network, the speed test is meant to work well on a mobile device. So key is being connected to the Wi-Fi. Cheryl asked, do you have any promotional verbiage for a church bulletin or blog? Yes, so let me share the slides again and I can show you what we have. So these we can send you directly and you can use them as images or copy and paste for newsletters, social media, whatever it might be. These are kind of like the simplified steps, but if you want to do a blog post with more details, I think grabbing directly from these one-pagers will be your best bet. So this one on the left is more general, meant for like anyone who's interested in doing this. It has some information on the bottom on what is a speed test, what is this tool, why should I participate, what happens afterwards, common questions. The second one pager is specific to multi-dwelling units, so apartments. So if you're like a housing authority or you work in affordable housing, this is great for you. Or you're just a resident of an apartment building. It has those details on how many units need to participate for this to kind of have an impact on determining eligibility for a whole building. So Troy asked, can there be a link to the interactive map that links to the public directly to the eligibility layer, something easy to search for their local address and see their current status? Yes, that is in progress. We're hoping to be able to publish that map by mid-January. There's a lot we want to make sure that we get right and a lot of different data layers behind it, but absolutely yes. And that map is actually required to be live and available for 7 days before the challenge process begins. So all in all, yes, it's not here yet, but soon. And it'll definitely be on that landing page for sure. Okay, am I missing any questions? Is there any funding for low-income residents who can't afford a plan? So a couple of things on that. Right now, there's a program called the Affordable Connectivity Program, ACP, that if you receive one of a whole host of government benefits, public benefits, you're eligible. You can also be eligible based on your income. And that provides you a $30 subsidy or a $30 discount off of your internet plan for participating providers. So depending on where you live, that's will determine who your provider is. Or you might have more than one option in some places. Beyond that, because ACP, we're kind of waiting right now to understand how long that program will last. But for this funding that is going towards infrastructure, there is a requirement that all of those providers offer some kind of low-cost plan. So that's the construction that will be happening over the next 5 years. But when that's done, the requirement for a low-cost and a middle-class affordability plan are there. The program is the Affordable Connectivity Program, ACP. If someone wants to throw that in the chat, and then you can learn more at getinternet.gov. And depending on where you live, there are organizations. Actually, you know what? I'm looking at T Spectre. If you give me your contact information, we have digital navigators around the state who are, their whole job is helping to sign people up for ACP. So would love to just connect you directly with them. And I can put that in the recap email also. Great. Thank you. I'm gonna write down your email right now. And then T Spectre, just let me know what area you live in so I can connect you with the right person. Part of the state.
Right. So we work, we
Sure.
have projects. So two things. So we have a project that we're working on home visiting on the south side in a whole group of zip codes. And we actually work on it with Chicago Fire Department. So people go in and it's a whole thing. We refer patients to them and their community paramedics go in. And so I think, they could actually help individuals check, their broadband. And then we also work with 13 federally qualified health centers. And so I think, if we try to get this information out to them, they could maybe work with their patients. So
fantastic. So it sounds like Chicago, said south side of
it's
Chicago.
Chicago, it's south side. And then, I'm going to bring this back to Medical Home Network, and it's possible we can get it out to these federally qualified health centers, because the one thing, Devon, that you said, and I was sorry, I was inadvertently communicating with somebody else. I thought I was doing, all, but the
No
thing
worries.
that really resonated
Mhm.
was telehealth visits, right? We're trying to do all these telehealth visits, and what we hear a lot is, it's bad. The connections are bad. So it could be in the sites themselves, in the medical homes themselves. It could be, on, where the patients live, and, they're wherever they live. And then I know that we have people who don't know how to use technology. And it's great to hear what you gave me, because I've been searching. And then also folks who probably just don't have good connections. So
really appreciate you sharing that. And it sounds like there's lots of ways we could engage and work together. So one, we'll definitely connect you with an ACP digital navigator. So they can actually work directly with residents one-on-one to help folks sign up either over the phone or the Chanel is our Chicago digital navigator. She is at Manning Library and Avalon Library twice a week, and does ACP signups there. So I'll let you guys connect directly. On the speed testing, agreed, telehealth going on video requires a solid connection and is going to be a big part of the state's strategy in digital equity over the next several years. So looking at it from both an infrastructure standpoint, is the connection available? And then from like the human usability standpoint, are there, opportunities to build skills to even understand how to use a telehealth system, to understand that it exists, the benefit. So we should definitely stay in touch. And
would love to.
Great. I'm looking at my colleague Ling Ling, who's our telehealth go-to team member, and so perhaps you guys can connect offline to chat even more.
Yeah, that would be great. If you could, Ling Ling, if you could just ping me, and then we can go back and forth. That would be great.
Great. And Cheryl, I see your note. I will also connect you with Chanel to chat around ACP sign up support.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be good, since these different groups are doing things on the south side. Maybe we can partner up.
Yeah,
And just
totally.
cover more areas, and get good support together.
Great.
Yeah. So Cheryl,
Hi.
if you get my email too.
Oh,
Yeah, I put mine is in the chat also. So
Okay.
I would like to add in. Hi, my name is Kimberly Chu. I'm a digital community navigator, and I am also an ACP specialist. Would love to connect with all of you because my main goal is to connect and have a wide variety of zip codes across the Chicagoland and connect them with a broadband connectivity. And so I would love to connect with you all as well, and partner up to figure out how we can get people connected. So I'll definitely drop my email as well in the chat and look forward to working with you.
This is great, making new connections.
Yep.
Well, while we're here and while folks are engaged, I'm going to plug a couple of opportunities. So one is right after this at 1 o'clock, there's a statewide digital equity update call where the state is going to provide updates on our digital equity plan draft and some findings from the different regions of the state. And then we're actually in a public comment window right now. So through the end of January at 5 p.m., you can submit comments telling us what you like about the plan, what's missing, what you would change. So I can drop the Zoom link in the chat if you want to attend the meeting at 1. And if not, it'll be recorded. And we're also doing some like regional engagement meetings. So you can look out for those. The second is all of this is tied to funding that's coming from the federal government over the next couple of years. What we talked about today was infrastructure, but there's a whole other piece called digital equity. So more on the like skill building, training, computer labs, things like that. As we await those federal funds, the state has a small grant program available right now called the Digital Equity Capacity Kickstarter Grant, or DEC. These are small grants, but they're kind of intended to help you either pilot programs right now, so you can sort of have perhaps a success story or learnings by the time those larger funds are available. Or maybe you have been funded to do this work and you just need a little bit more gap funding to help you keep going again before the longer term funds are available. So I'm going to just throw a couple of things in the chat here. The first is the Zoom for the 1 o'clock meeting. If my computer cooperates. And if any of my colleagues have this link faster than I do not hesitate to drop it in.
Sure, I'll put it in.
Okay. Oh, I got it. So this is a very long link.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
I'll
so
label it here.
every first Friday of the month, Fridays at 1 to 2 p.m., there are these Illinois monthly digital equity update calls. So you can also shoot me an email to make sure you're added to that listserv. And then the second is that grant program. So let's see how quickly I can find this. And if you're interested, again, always happy to answer questions. But here's more information about the DEC program. And the next deadline is January 22nd at 5 p.m. And that may be the final wave. So feel free to let us know if you're interested. All right. Any other final questions about speed test, challenge process, materials, anything at all? Okay. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks to our interpreter, Jose, and Nancy for hosting, and just for everyone's attendance and engagement. Lots of exciting things to come. So let's work together to get this map updated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you much.
Sure.